Hey everyone, it's Miss Witten here to go over measurement with you. So, measurement can be done in a lot of different units of measurement. As you may remember from our area and perimeter lesson, you can measure length and distance in inches and centimeters and millimeters, in yards and miles, in kilometers. There's lots of different ways that you can measure things. The most common way and the most important thing for you to understand in third grade is how to use inches with a ruler. So this ruler we have here, let's say it's in inches, which is either written out in inches or it can be abbreviated by IN with a period. So this particular ruler seen here has 5 inches on it, but a lot of times you guys remember from our rulers in class that they are 12 inches, which equals 1 foot. But the way that you read a ruler, no matter how long it goes, stays the same. So when you're measuring, you have these big numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on this ruler. And then you have these smaller little tick marks in between each one that you see here. So when we are measuring something, you always want to make sure you're at 0. This one doesn't tell us 0. Some rulers do, some rulers don't. We always want to make sure that it's lined up with that very first line or where it says 0. So wherever your object or line stops, that's where it lands on the ruler. So this line would be about 4 inches, right? But what if it lands in between some numbers? So if it lands in between some numbers, that's where we have to look at this. So this is that little section zoomed in, and again, let's pretend that there's a 0 over here on this line, and if this looks kind of like a number line to some of you, that's because we can kind of look at it like that. And you all remember from our fractions lesson that when something is between 0 and 1, that it's going to be a fraction. So in the same exact way as we used our number line with our fractions, we can do the same thing with a ruler. So for example, this is one section. This is section 2, 3, and 4. So just in the same way that we draw our boxes and fractions, we can say our denominator is going to be 4 because this particular ruler is broken up into quarter inches, right? Each one of these sections is equal to 1/4. And that is why a lot of times you'll see that this middle line here shows that it's 1/2 of the way there. And then this little notch here would be 1/4. This one over here would be 3/4. So let me write that out. It might make a little bit more sense. So if we know our denominator is going to be 4th, everything's going to be 4, right? And we know 1 is going to be 4/4 because that equals to 1 whole. And this little line starts us off 0. We can do the same thing with our bunny hop. So I can go, okay, that's 1 hop. That's going to be 2 hops from 0, right? 1, 2. And then 1, 2, 3. Sorry, it's a little messy, but you get the point. That's 3/4 of an inch, right? So if I were to ask you how long this line is, I would either say that it's 1/2 of an inch, which also equals 2/4, right? Just like that. Now I'm going to go back to our slide from before and show you what it looks like if we go past 1, right? Because we can go past 1 when we're measuring. So let's say our line or object lands right about there. So what you have to do is you have to count the whole numbers. You have to say, okay, it goes past 1, it goes past 2, and it goes past 3, but it does not cross over this 4 line. So you know that it's 3 inches, but then you see that it goes a little bit past, right? Just a little bit. And that's where you say, okay, same thing. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. So I'm going to make a fraction. And from the 3, which you kind of start over at the 0, is 1 hop. So that's where our line lines up. So your answer would be 3 1/4 inches. Let's do one more. So let's say I do a line that's about that length. So same thing. I passed my 1, I passed my 2, passed my 3, passed my 4, but didn't quite make it to 5. So my big number is going to be 4. And then I see that this is broken up into 1, 2, 3, 4 sections. So I know my denominator is going to be 4. And then starting over, just as if this were a 0 and this were a 1, you can hop and say, okay, 1, 2. And the reason I'm hopping there is because that's where my line ends. And I can say 4 2/4, or I can reduce that fraction to 4 1/2. So you can pause this video really quick if you want to take a guess at what this is, but you always make sure that this starts at the very first 0, the beginning of the ruler, and you can kind of draw a line if it's a funny object. So we would say that this is 3 inches, nice and even. All right, now we have this sunshine. So it lines up at the 0, more or less. I should have scooted over just a little bit, but just act like that starts at the 0. And then I'm going to draw the end of it, which is about right there. So it goes past my 1, goes past my 2, so my big number is going to be 2. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections in between the 2 whole numbers. And then I can jump 1 to get 2 1/4 inches. All right, and one more. Again, feel free to pause the video, try it first yourself, and then unpause it and see if you got it right. But 1, 2, 3, 4 doesn't hit the 5, so I know that my whole number is going to be 4. And then I'm going to see kind of where it lands, probably right in the middle. And we don't even have to hop because we know that our middle is going to be 1/2. So really your options when you have your ruler, let me go back, is you're going to have a whole number or no whole number, right, if it's between 0 and 1. And then depending on how much it's broken up, that's going to be your fraction. But in 3rd grade, the main ones that you need to know are 1/4, 1/2, which is also 2/4, and 3/4. So you're going to have some kind of whole number, and then you're going to have one of these fractions, or you can just have one of those fractions depending on what you're measuring. Okay, so these, we call them broken rulers. They're a little bit funny because as you can see, the objects, they don't really start at 0, right? So what are we supposed to do when the object isn't lined up correctly and doesn't start at the 0? Well, we have a few options. So this, let's say again that these are all inches. Usually it'll tell you in your problem or on your ruler. So this tool right here, we'll start with that one. So I kind of just like to line it up just to make sure I have my start and finish correct. So this one looks like it starts at the 3 and ends at the 8. So if you are quick with numbers and you like to do operations, which is the goal, you can do 8 minus 3 to get 5 inches, right? But if I've totally lost you, do not fear. I can also just pretend like this starts at 0, right? I can say, okay, 3 is actually 0, this is actually 1, this is actually 2, this is actually 3, this is actually 4, and this is actually 5. And you could get the same answer. It's still going to be 5 inches. Now, this can be done also with the ruler that has the 1/4 inches on it. Let me go back. So if you have a broken ruler and let's say it doesn't give you this portion, it just it broke, right? It's a broken ruler. So let's say I have something that starts here and ends right about here. So this is going to be our new 0, and we know that each new little line on our ruler indicates 1/4 because of the way that our ruler is broken up. So you know that this is 1/4 inch, this is 1/2 inch, this is 3/4, and then it jumps to 1/4. whole inch, right? Does this look familiar, this kind of number line situation we have here? Okay, and then you have 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, and then another whole number, 2. And then you have, again, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, 3, and so on and so forth. So recognize that there's a pattern here. And remember, 1/2 also is equal to 2/4, but it's nicer to say 1/2. It's just easier to understand. So now if I measure this, now it's way easier, right? I say, okay, I can use this, my new ruler that I've written, and I can just line it up here, and I can say, okay, my whole number was 2, and it would be 2.5 inches. All right, so this can take a little bit of practice because I know it can get a little bit tricky, but another way that you can do it is, let's try this football, is you can say, okay, here to here, so in 8 to 10, you can pretend like this is your 0 right here, and you can do hops. You can do our bunny hops on your number line to say, okay, 1, 2. So this would be 2 inches. You guys probably already figured out 10 minus 8 is also equal to 2 inches. And you can turn this into 0, this into 1, and this into 2, and you get the same answer. So you all can pause the screen if you would like to do the other, the screwdriver and the bicycle, and I will give you the answer. So let's do our hops. Let's say this is 0, because this is where it starts, and I'm going to go 1, 2, ooh, whoa, I don't know what I did there. 1, 2, 3. So your answer is 3 inches. And my bicycle, I'm going to use my operation, 7 minus 4, to get 3 inches as well. So that is pretty much all I have for you all for your measurement. Make sure to always include your units of measurement, whether they be feet, inches, yards, miles, centimeters, millimeters, whatever is given to you in the problem. And please ask your teachers if